Welcome to our midweek message. I'm Pastor Reed, coming to you from First Baptist Church of Olathe. I'm so glad you're taking the opportunity to watch and listen this midweek message. I hope more than anything that you were encouraged in your walk with God as you chase after Him. On Sunday, we talked about the sign that was the feeding of the 5,000, how Jesus took 5 loaves and 2 fish and perfectly provided more than what the people needed. That in the provision, He provided abundantly more than what all of the people needed. How this was supposed to be a sign for us that in the person of Jesus, God has provided perfectly for all of His people, to be reconciled to Himself and to find fulfillment in that reconciliation, in that relationship. Today I want to talk about relationship because that's really at the heart of what it means to be a person of God. My grandmother was an absolutely fantastic person. The way that she related to us kids was to give us stuff. When we were little, it was little things. We would my brother and I would sit on either side of her in the back seat of the car as we drove along, and she would dig into her caverner's purse and she would pull out cherry flavored cough drops, which we loved. We thought were like candy. She would pull out quarters or mints, and she would hide them in a hand and have us pick which hand they were hidden in. As we got older, she would give us bigger and bigger and bigger gifts to the point where eventually she stopped having any sort of idea of what to give us, and she just gave us money and she said, "Go, get what you want." I love my grandma. She poured out blessings upon us. But for a long time, I didn't really know my grandma. I knew that she was somebody who loved me. I knew that she was somebody that wanted to bless me, but I didn't really know her. And when I graduated high school, I had the opportunity to spend some time with her. Now, the exact context and the shenanigans that we got into, that's a whole other story. But I got to know her. I got to know the person that she was. Relationship involves getting to know the one that you want to have a relationship with. Not just knowing the things that they've done or the things that they've given you. After Jesus feeds the 5,000, the Gospel of John says that the people tried to were going to seize him to make them their king. And Jesus was like, I don't want any part of that. And so he went out in the wilderness up on the mountain by himself. And the disciples were like, where'd Jesus go? And so they ended up getting in the boat and heading over to the other side of the Sea of Galilee. And Jesus ends up meeting them partway through their journey as he calms the storm. You guys remember that story. And we'll talk about that on Sunday. But the interesting thing is what happens when he gets to the other side. The people wake up and they notice that the boat's gone and they notice that Jesus is gone. And so they're like, well, we got to go find this Jesus because he's just fed all of us and something miraculous has happened. And so they get in the boat and they go over to the other side of the Sea of Galilee and they find him. And this is what the Gospel of John says, 6:25 through 26. When they found him on the other side of the sea, they said to him, "Rabbi, when did you come here?" Jesus answered them, "Truly, truly, I say to you, you are seeking me not because you saw signs, but because you ate your fill of the loaves." What he's saying to them is, you're seeking them not because you saw the signs of who I am, but that you were blessed and want more blessings. So they didn't necessarily know him, or they weren't even necessarily seeking to know him. What they were seeking was their own fulfillment. their blessings that God would give them. And this they end up having a discussion, and a lot of disciples leave at this point. But what he's saying to them is you got to know me. You got to know who I am. You got to know why I'm really here. And I think that this can be kind of how we are with God, is that we can begin to relate to God in simply beginning to understand the things that he's given us, the ways that he has blessed us. And so we love him for those things. But I think God wants to be loved for who he is. And I think that this is what it is really at the heart of being a disciple of Christ, is figuring out how to chase after Jesus in a way that we get to know who God actually is, not just what he's done, but who he is. And the cool thing is that this is a God who has created us for this relationship. And this is a God who has sent his son to walk amongst us, to suffer like us, to die for us, so that we can have that kind of relationship. And so the challenge is to seek that relationship out. But the encouragement is that he's ready to take your hand. I hope that you are encouraged to move beyond simply knowing about the things that God has done and move into knowing the heart of God. Be blessed. Be a blessing. See you next week.